Hello and welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to discuss about what lessons we have learned or India has learned from the Operation Sindoor. Okay, so the first lesson that India has learned is that we need concrete intelligence to begin any military operation. So Operation Sindoor, all of you know when it started, and it was India's reaction to the Pahalgam terror attacks. So on the night of May 7th, these various terrorist targets, 9 terrorist targets were terrorist infrastructure, we can say, were targeted by the Indian Air Force or Indian military. So now, how would we get information about these terrorist infrastructures? Through proper and concrete intelligence. Okay, so the terror attack happened in Pahalgam, and our intelligence agencies decided that terrorist hideouts must be found out and targeted by our military. So it took some time for intelligence agencies to identify the targets, where the terrorists would come from, where they are targeted, their regular training places, etc. So some concrete intelligence was required. Okay, and not only intelligence, and the buildings or infrastructure that the terrorists were using inside Pakistan, that okay, this is the building, so here terrorists are trained, here jihadis are trained, so that particular very concrete intelligence is required for that purpose, and that is where Indian agencies did a very great job in finding the terror targets, pinpointing them, and then discussions should take place with our defense forces, with our air force, that these are the targets, these are the coordinates, so you have to strike here to neutralize the terrorists. So concrete intelligence is required before starting a military operation like Operation Sindoor. So now, what second lesson we have learned is combat or defense preparedness. Okay, so what is this about? So Operation Sindoor was launched 14 days after Pahalgam terror attacks. Okay, so 14 days is quite a gap. Okay, so it is important because every major military operation needs time for combat preparation and defense. Okay, so you will attack your enemy. Okay, but your enemy will also attack you back. So two-way preparation is required. First, you have to make a plan that you will attack your enemy and you should have minimum damage on your side. And then again, when enemy strikes back, then also you should minimize your losses. So all these things take time. Okay, so 14 days gap was taken, and during this time the terrorist targets, the infrastructure or hideouts of terrorists were identified, as I have already mentioned in my previous point, and discussions were carried out with defense forces, like mode of operation, how operation could be done, then time of operation, while keeping on damage to a minimum level. Okay, and again I already mentioned that they would also, our adversary would also attack us back with maybe fighter jets, missiles, drones, etc. So our defense forces were ready to counter our adversary. Okay, so for fighter jets, our missile defense system was ready. For drones, our missile defense system, I mean short range missile defense system, was also ready. Also army gunners were using their guns to shoot drones, which we came to know later. Okay, so our forces took some time for combat preparedness, but for defense preparedness, so during that time of 14 days, our forces did these two things simultaneously. Okay, so this is also required, and the preparation should be very precise. Okay, there should be no room for error, and this combat and defense preparedness are therefore equally important for any military operation. Then indigenous defense equipments. Okay, before I move to the next point, so here is one Rafale pictures, Rafale fighter jet used by the Indian Air Force, which was armed with scalp and hammer missiles. Then Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter jet, which is armed with BrahMos missile. Okay, so those missiles were fired into the terrorist infrastructures in Pakistan. So this is our Akastir missile defense system. This is our S-400 missile defense system. Although S-400 is a long-range missile defense system, but Akastir is a short-range missile defense system. So these systems these were defensive systems. Okay, let me tell you one thing. These fighter aircrafts which I have shown here, they are for combat, but these missile defense systems are for our defense. Okay, then indigenous defense equipment. So indigenous defense equipments are very important for India's combat and defensive purposes. Okay, so India has been a net weapons importer. We have been importing weapons from foreign nations since our independence, but recently, mainly after 2014, so indigenous defense equipment production has got momentum. Okay, mainly we, as of today, we import most of our equipments from Russia, Israel, France, etc. Okay, so but India's defense needs are also very unique. Okay, and in the evolving security scenario in South Asia, India must keep on developing own defense equipments. And not only that, technology transfer from friendly foreign countries should also be considered for critical defense production like fighter jets, okay, submarines, air defense systems. So, and recently there was also a news that some one like equipment called Bhargavastra, one weapons has been developed to counter drone attacks in the future. So this is the Akastir missile defense system, which was used to shoot down drones. And this is here you can see an army soldier with this particular setup where I can see 3 guns have been fitted to this particular setup to shoot drones. Okay, low flying drones, so they can be shot. The drones are also quite cheap, $400-500 drones maybe. And for those cheap drones, you don't really need expensive missile defense systems. Some guns which can pinpointedly fire or shoot at the drones are required. So our defense forces did a very good job with defense equipments during this Operation Sindoor. Okay, now one most important thing, I think that is the last point I'll discuss today, is building the narrative. Okay, see, so Indian defense forces conducted raid on terrorist infrastructure inside Pakistan, and what happened? The Western media asked Pakistan what happened. So they, instead of asking Indian authorities why you attacked Pakistan, why you attacked certain targets in that country, so they chose to ask Pakistan. So what happened? So then Pakistan got the chance to narrate the story according to their own will. Okay, so they created some fake news that Indian Rafale jets and other fighter jets were down by Pakistani jets and so on. Although most of those things, those narratives have been found to be fake, either fake or our adversary could not provide any concrete proof that they downed our jets. Okay, and however, the next day, so these things already happened. I mean, within a few hours, like the almost the whole world knew that in some air battle, Pakistan could shoot down Indian jets, and both Pakistani and Chinese media are responsible for spreading this narrative, because of course China would want to show their weapons in a good light. But the next day, Indian Ministry of Defense and Indian Foreign Ministry, they conducted press conference and they informed the press about the main operation, what had happened, and how our forces destroyed terrorist targets within Pakistan. Okay, however, here I think our media and our government, to build the narrative, to send the right message to the Western countries, could have done something more, so the Chinese fake news and Pakistani fake news could not come to light. Okay, so of course we know what happened later, what happened on the night of 10th of May when 11 of Pakistan's air bases were attacked and Chinese missile defense system could not work. Chinese PL-15 missile did not work, and several of the airports, important air bases of Pakistan's air force, were destroyed or damaged to an extent by Indian defense forces. So those things hardly any Western media covered, or maybe a few Western media covered, but already this Rafale news, when I was checking international news, so the Rafale news, Rafale downing news, which proof could not be provided by Chinese or Pakistani or any media, that news still could be seen. So that is certainly fake news, and our air forces also said that no asset of Indian Air Force was lost during Operation Sindoor. Therefore, our DGMO also did great presentations showing satellite images of damaged Pakistan's air bases. So our like military army DGMO, air marshal, and Navy authorities also did a great job in professionally letting the world know what India has done during the course of Operation Sindoor. So friends, these are the things I had to discuss today, the main points which we have learned. We must need concrete intelligence. Our defense preparedness combat should be perfect. We should focus on developing indigenous equipment and narrative building, or with proper proof what damage we have inflicted on the enemies should also be focused or highlighted. So these are the things I had to discuss today. I hope you have liked this video. You will find this video useful. If so, please like this video, subscribe to this channel. I will soon see you in another such interesting video. Thank you very much.